Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about a three-part series. We're going to talk about the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. We're going to explain it fully. Coming right up. So let's go over some of the basics that people are talking about, and I want to share with you. I'm fascinated by people doing this. And listen, hey man, I'm not trying to beat up truthers on this issue. I'm trying to give people a framing of this that it's not exactly analogous. Okay, so let me show you what's going on here. So we have on one side this concept of the Great Awakening. Okay, now I'm going to show a little picture here in a second, and you'll see this little kind of variance, this little guy standing there. We'll show it in the corner here. And this guy's standing there, and he's looking at a fork in a road, and one is a dark Great Reset on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side is the Great Awakening kind of thing. And while it's a cute, picture, I've liked it overall, there's some struggles with it, okay? And you might be going, why are you, beating up all kinds of truthers in this? That's not my goal here. I want to explain it because we're getting a lot of misunderstanding about this, okay? I mean, definition of terms is really, really important, okay? So again, we're going to talk that through all the way through on that one. So the second side over here is that Great Reset. Okay. Now let's just start over on the Great Reset side for a bit. Okay. What Great Reset does is this is the World Economic Forum that gets into this kind of stuff. This is Klaus Schwab, the ridiculous idiot for that stuff. What they keep pushing is this idea, and you will own nothing and be happy. I mean, it's so stupid. I don't know how to explain why anyone would think that's a good idea, okay? And if anyone out there can explain to me a group of people who would actually think that's a smart idea, I'd love to hear it, okay? Go ahead and comment in the channel. I'd love to see the argument for it. Okay, I know some of you will want to explain it to me. I understand what we all feel about this, okay? But I would love to have a person who wants to, sit on this side of the fence. That means that if you have an iPhone, if you have a camera that I'm looking at right here, if you have a shirt or anything else, you will own nothing and be happy. But see, here's the reality. If you own nothing, which is the world, someone owns it. Okay, someone makes it, someone sells it, someone buys it. It's so stupid, I don't know how to explain how dumb it is. And they're hoping that you're stupid along with it, okay? So that's part of it. But it actually gives you an intimation of communism. Now, AOC, what an idiot she is, this is also social democracy, okay? Or, socialism. I mean, there's all kinds of little different words in there. Basically, or democratic socialism, actually, sorry, it's a better way of saying that. Sorry, I didn't say that. I said that wrong. You're going to go, what? Okay. Democratic, socialism, okay? Now, in these ideas, what we're talking about is that it puts everyone on a level playing field, okay? Everyone gets the same amount of toys and they're happy with it, okay? This is the basic point up here, okay? Now, I've seen college students who try to like argue, people like Charlie Kirk on this, and Charlie Kirk has a great point here. Tell me one example of a time frame, get this, of a time frame when socialism has worked. And then, you know, and it's like Cuba. I mean, Poland. I mean, tell me one example of a time frame when the people were happy in the middle of this, okay? And the reality is, not one of them have ever come to fruition that, oh my gosh, this was a paradise. You know, China is a communism. North Korea is a communism that is just, it's sick. I mean, if you look at the North Koreans, I mean, they've actually made cities and areas, no one's even living in them. They're like a shell of a structure. And people are walking around just fearful, and when you really understand it. And it's like this, it's these little kids with blinders on, and they just fully don't understand what they're actually saying. You know, most people will say to you, if you vote yourself into this once, and you can't ever get out of it. And that's a great way to put it, okay? The reality is, this is a group of people, a very small cadre, we call them the cabal, a cadre of idiots who think that they can control the rest of the world, okay? This is the whole point behind this, okay? Now that's the the people and telling them what they're going to do. But what the Great Reset really is about is going from this debt system of the fiat currency that we currently have right now. And they have to suck it dry. Now, anytime you live on debt, and by the way, as a business, I've lived on debt, okay? And I remember in the first part of this business, my business from 2005 all the way to about 2012, I mean, I was in a negative, 90% debt to income ratio. I mean, I was like living on credit just to hope to get by. And the answer is, and when you don't understand, when you understand the fiat currency is a debt currency. It has no backing. This is what the Fed, this is what, when you hear about central bankers, see, they love living on this because guess what? The piper always is coming due. It has to come due. No matter what you think about it, the piper has to be paid. And so normally the debt cycles happen in around 20 to 30 years. Now, we've talked about this if you watch my other videos, but 1913 was the beginning of this. The basic time frame was 1933 when they went through their first debt crisis, where they pulled the people off of the gold standard. Didn't mean the world was off of the gold standard. The people had to give away their gold. Now, the next one was 1971, and it was starting a little bit before that, okay? And it went on a little bit further. Actually, I was wrong. It's about 30 years in that range of time frame. But you know, so anyway, that point is out there. So 1971, this is the gas crisis, and this is when we went fully off of the gold standard. Another time frame was 1999, and it would come to fruition in 2001 when we had the dot-com era that was dying. The stock market was just going to hell in a handbasket over and over again, and then we have 9/11, okay, and that's the other issue. And everyone has known that we had another one coming up in 2020. Now again, we come to fruition in 22. And it normally takes a few years for these things to kind of set in place. Now, again, this one it's always, well, it is 20 to 30 years, but this one started in 29 and really ended around 33. And so they have this kind of variant time frame, but it's because they've been living on debt issues. And so what the Great Reset wants to do is it wants to pay off student loans. And it's going to pay off the student loans to get all the kids excited about this. There also is bankruptcy that comes in here, okay? And when you have these two events, is that people have to give over their property. First off, the student loans is just their way of framing it, okay? But they never give anything away for free. Okay, you think that you're going to get this, taken away, but they never give that away free. Bankruptcy is another not free event. Okay, when you understand this is not about freedom in that way. This is about taking what you own and you don't get anything for it. I mean, let's say you've been paying on your house for 12 years and then you suddenly go into bad times. And they finally take your house 6 months, nine months later in that foreclosure notice. You never get credit for anything that you ever paid in that house. That's just how this sicko system goes, okay? And that's what they do. And then they take that house and they resell it. This is the sad part of this whole thing, and this is the process by which it happens. So what they're going to do is just go on to a new debt system. Okay, a new digital system. And that's what most people, because they're seeing it through the eyes of the Fed or the central banks. See, if you only have thought of the world through the central bank viewpoint, this is why economists, money people, don't understand this. They can't imagine anything else out there. The Great Reset's coming. And I even hear Christians talking about it. I'm like, do you understand? It's communism. Well, then we're ready for the end times. No, because these guys want to bring in something that you're missing. They want to bring in the mark of the beast without the beast. That's what the vax is, okay? This little jab thing that they wanted to do. They want to bring in that type of mark system without the beast. Unless you believe Joe Biden is the beast, but he's not smart enough to put his diapers on. So that's a different conversation. So the reality is, this is what they do. They bankrupt the system and then they pull in something completely new. And this is what they did from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, here, boom. And they get it into a complete suck dry system. And it's hard for people to understand. If you've been watching me since 2020, it was hard for me to understand. I mean, I was putting it together more and more every day. And I was learning about this. Okay, so that's the basics of the Great Reset. Okay, this is their sicko thing. That's what you only hear in the world, okay? So then we have on the other side this Great Awakening. Now, it's really good, okay? The one thing, and we'll compare them in just a little bit more, but the Great Awakening is talking about, red pill, blue pill. It's waking up, okay? If you've ever watched the Matrix series, you see red pill, you're waking up, the blue pill, you're going back to sleep, okay? It is another point of understanding, this area right here. I'm not going to say it out loud, or I'm going to get, banned off the channel with this too. This part here, the FRAUD, okay, when you have this issue coming out, this is part of that Great Awakening. Again, these are very important topics to get into. And what it talks about is getting in to the next cycle that would come out here. which is, a red wave. So you're talking about getting into the red wave. This is why they say, hey, get out and vote in 2022, and then we'll take back everything in 2024, okay? This is what they're talking about here, okay? Again, nothing wrong with this stuff. I love this information here, okay? I love where they're going here. Now, what it talks also about is the constitutional reform. So that we can return to the constitutional reform. And they talk about, but what they do is that there's a little bit of miscommunication, that we do it through democracy. Okay? And so we're going to do that by voting enough people in. Now let me tell you something that I've had a little controversy on my Telegram channel, and you can go look for it. It's NESARA Dr. Scott Young, and I can put it in the the area below. And they were saying, well, in the primaries and this is it, we're in middle of July of 2022, and they were like, so did you vote in the primaries? And I was like, no. So in Tulsa, a couple of the people that were going for a senator seat is Senator Langford, who was the supposed Christian. I know for a fact that boy is a mess, okay? I've talked to him on specific time frames about what he does, and he has gone off in silly land, believes the lie. He has supported Biden's kind of events. He supported letting him be a part of the process, and then he supported him after January 6th, okay? And there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on. And then he kind of, goes back and forth. And this is, oh, well, but he is a good guy and he's a Republican. And I always say, okay, but if they stole it from here, if you stole it from here and you said that they stole maybe around 70 million votes, can you steal it if there was 110 million votes for the other way? And the answer is, well, if you can steal it with 70, you can do it with 110. What's the difference? Okay, so what I want to stop right here because I want you to see these are not talking about the same idea. They're not on the same conversation. They seem like they are because we're talking about communism versus constitutional reform and democracy, democratic socialism, versus this idea. And yet this part they see, well we've got to fix some of this stuff, and they put it in here. So, and then we see this and we think that they're analogous. But I want to end with this point. I'm a huge NFL fan, and in '96 I started to get into the NHL hockey. And so I was just moving to Denver area, and I remember calling up a friend named Neil. Neil is actually the CEO, or CFO, of ORU. So Neil Stenzel, great guy. And he's a huge St. Louis Blues fan. So we kind of joke back and forth every once in a while. And he knows I'm a Colorado Avalanche fan, and they just won the Stanley Cup, and we beat St. Louis out of there. So, but I was trying to learn the game. So we picked up an ESPN game, and both of us were watching the game. We didn't care about either team. And I was just like, yeah, but what about that? What I understand icing? Why did it go icing? Why did it hit? Why this? Why is the, and I would just ask these questions. Again, I understand sports, but I'm telling you, NHL hockey is not the same thing. There's a concept called offsides in football. And basically what happens is that either the defender goes across the defensive line, and just as across the offensive line, either before the stat by moving, or his actually putting his hand in there, or called encroachment, which are still basically the same penalty. But if you apply offsides to hockey, that means that the offensive player can bring the puck in. The puck has to go in first before any of the other players. Completely different concept. They're called the same basic idea of offsides and offsides, but they're not exactly the same. And if you understand offsides in football, you can try to apply it to hockey and it doesn't really go, vice versa. I see a lot of Canadians who understand, hockey, and then they look at football and they're going, I just don't understand it. Even Canadian football doesn't actually operate with offsides and motion in the same direction as the NFL does. So what am I trying to say is they're not exactly analogous to one another. And when you're trying to argue this, you get so confused by the topics. Again, there's nothing of a lie in this kind of thing. They're just not equal to one another. So we'll talk about why in that next video. So thanks for listening. Subscribe, like, and actually leave some comments on them below. Thanks so much.